Before we start, I want you to imagine something for me. Imagine waking up every day knowing the whole kingdom already decided who you must be. Imagine every girl in Westland being taught to dream of becoming a princess, while the one girl who actually is a princess spends her whole life wishing she were anything else. That girl was me. People think royalty is gowns, crowns, and easy days. But the truth, it's 1,000 eyes watching your every step. It's a list of rules longer than your own thoughts. It's smiling when you want to run, and standing tall when your heart feels small. Sometimes I'd look at the women in the town laughing, buying bread, arguing over prices, living freely. And I'd wonder what it feels like to belong to your own life. If you knew the truth about my kingdom, you'd never believe I once tried to escape it. But this is the story of how a princess became a runaway, and how a single night changed everything. I wasn't supposed to be here. The market at Riversend was loud and messy and full of people who didn't care about titles or bloodlines. That's exactly why I loved it. I pulled my worn brown cloak tighter around my shoulders and kept my head down. My blonde hair was tied back in a simple braid, nothing like the elaborate styles they forced on me at the castle. No jewels, no silk, no guards following 3 steps behind. Just me, pretending to be someone else for a few stolen hours. The smell of fresh bread mixed with roasted meat and something sweet I couldn't name. Vendors shouted about their goods. Children ran past, chasing a dog. A woman laughed so loud it made me smile. This was real life, the kind I never got to see from behind castle walls. I stopped at a stall selling sweet meadow cakes, small round things made with crushed oats, honey, and dried fruits. The old woman behind the counter smiled at me like I was just another customer. 2 silver for 3 love, she said. I handed over the coins and took a bite right there. Sweet and warm and simple. Perfect. Then someone crashed into me from behind. I stumbled forward, nearly dropping the cakes. Strong hands caught my arms and steadied me before I hit the ground. Careful, a low voice said. I looked up and found myself staring at a woman in royal armor. She was tall, broad-shouldered, with short black hair and dark brown eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. A scar ran along her jaw. Her expression was calm but alert. I'm sorry, I said quickly, brushing crumbs off my cloak. I wasn't watching where I was going. Neither was the boy who ran past you, she replied. Her voice was steady, controlled. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Thank you. She studied me for a moment, just long enough to make my heart beat faster. Not because I was afraid, because something about her felt different, solid, real. Good, she said simply, then stepped back. I wanted to say something else, anything to keep her there a little longer, but a group of soldiers called out to her from across the market. Sir Althea, we're ready to move. Sir Althea, a knight. She gave me a small nod, then turned and walked away. I watched her go, her armor catching the afternoon light. I didn't even know why I cared, but I did. 3 days later, I stood in the throne room trying not to look as miserable as I felt. My aunt, Queen Marin, sat on the throne looking every bit the ruler she was. Silver crown, deep blue robes, hands folded in her lap like she held the weight of the entire kingdom without effort. I wore a gown I hated, pale gold silk that restricted my breathing and made me feel like a decoration instead of a person. My hair was pulled up with pins that dug into my scalp. Denna, my aunt said, her voice echoing slightly in the large stone room. I've made a decision regarding the northern trade route. I already knew what was coming. Some mission, some duty, some reason to remind me I wasn't just a woman, but a symbol of House Valestra. You'll travel to the borderlands to oversee the new agreements with the eastern villages. It's important work. Delicate. Of course, Your Majesty, I said, keeping my voice neutral. You'll need proper protection. The roads aren't safe lately. Bandits have been bolder. The heavy doors at the far end of the room opened. I heard boots on stone. I've chosen your escort personally, my aunt continued. Someone I trust completely. I turned to see who was walking toward us. My breath caught. It was her, the knight from the market. Sir Althea of Ironford. She walked with purpose, her armor polished and formal now. She stopped a respectful distance away and bowed to the queen, then to me. When she straightened, our eyes met. I saw the exact moment she recognized me. Her expression didn't change much, just a slight widening of her eyes, a pause in her breathing. I couldn't help it. I smiled, just a little. Princess Denna Valestra, my aunt said, gesturing toward me. This is Sir Althea of Ironford. She arrived in Westland a few weeks ago and has already proven herself invaluable. She'll be your protection on this journey. Althea's jaw tightened slightly. She was clearly trying not to react. It's an honor, Your Highness, she said, her voice as steady as it had been in the market. The honor is mine, Sir Althea, I replied, keeping my tone formal even though I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. The girl in the market, the princess in the throne room. She must have thought I'd lied to her, but I hadn't. Not really. I'd just been the version of myself I wished I could be all the time. My aunt continued talking about the journey, the route, the timeline. I barely heard any of it. All I could think about was the way Althea was standing so carefully, so correctly, like she was afraid one wrong move might break something. I wondered if she was angry or confused, or maybe just disappointed. When the meeting ended, Althea bowed again and left without looking at me. I stood there in my heavy gown, feeling more trapped than ever. The courtyard was busy the next morning. Horses stamped their hooves. Servants loaded supplies onto the carts. Guards checked their weapons and adjusted their armor. I stood near the stone steps, dressed in travel clothes that were still far too fine for my liking. At least they let me braid my hair simply. Althea was near the horses, checking saddles and speaking quietly to another guard. She hadn't looked at me once since arriving. I walked over slowly, my boots crunching on the gravel. Sir Althea, I said. She turned, her expression neutral. Professional, Your Highness. I wanted to explain, I started. There's nothing to explain, she said quickly. You're the princess. I'm your protection. That's all that matters. Her tone wasn't cold exactly, but it wasn't warm either. It was the voice of someone putting distance between us. I wasn't lying to you in the market, I said quietly, stepping closer so the others wouldn't hear. I just wanted to be normal for a few hours. She finally looked at me properly. Those dark brown eyes studied my face like she was trying to figure out if I was telling the truth. I understand, Your Highness, she said after a moment. Denna, I corrected. When it's just us, call me Denna. Her expression softened just slightly. That wouldn't be appropriate. I don't care about appropriate, I do. We stared at each other for a long moment. I could see the conflict in her eyes. Duty versus something else. Something she wouldn't let herself name. We should leave soon, she said, breaking the silence. The road to Mooncrest takes 2 days if the weather holds. I nodded, knowing I'd lost this round. She helped me onto my horse without another word. Her hands were steady and careful, like she was handling something fragile. We rode out of the castle gates just as the sun cleared the eastern hills. For guards rode with us, but Althea stayed close to my side. The city streets were already awake. Vendors setting up stalls, children running errands, workers heading to the docks. I watched it all, wishing I could stop and walk among them again, Althea noticed. You really do prefer the market to the castle, don't you? I glanced at her, surprised she'd spoken first. Every single time, I admitted. She didn't smile, but something in her expression eased, just a little. Maybe this journey wouldn't be as silent as I'd feared. We camped that first night in a clearing just off the main road. The guards set up a perimeter while Althea built the fire herself, her movements efficient and practiced. I sat on a fallen log and watched her work. She didn't speak much, just nodded when the guards reported and kept her attention on practical things. One of the younger guards brought us bowls of hearthroot stew from the pot they'd been cooking. Diced root vegetables, wild herbs, and chicken, slow cooked in a clay pot. The smell alone made my stomach growl. "Thank you," I said, taking the bowl. Althea accepted hers with a quiet nod and sat on the opposite side of the fire. Not close, but not far either. We ate in silence for a while. The stew was good, finished with a little forest honey that made it taste both savory and sweet at the same time. "Do you always travel like this?" I asked eventually, needing to break the quiet. She looked up from her bowl. "Like what?" "So carefully, so controlled." "It's my job to be careful," she said simply, "even when you eat." That almost got a smile, especially then. You never know when trouble might come. I set my bowl down and leaned forward slightly. "What's Ironford like?" She paused, clearly not expecting the question. "Hard, cold in winter. The mines run deep, and the forges burn hot. People there don't waste words." "Is that where you learned to be a knight?" "No, I learned to survive there. I learned to be a knight in the war." The way she said war made it clear she didn't want to talk about it. I didn't push. "Do you miss it?" I asked instead. "Sometimes it was honest work. You knew where you stood. And here," she met my eyes across the fire. "Here is different." The firelight made shadows dance across her face. I could see the scar on her jaw more clearly now, a thin line that curved toward her ear. "How did you get that scar?" I asked softly. "Border raid 6 years ago. Someone got too close with a blade." "Does it hurt?" "Not anymore." I wanted to reach across the fire and trace it with my fingers, but I stayed where I was. One of the guards called out that the watch rotation was set. Althea stood and brushed off her hands. "You should sleep, Your Highness. Tomorrow will be a long ride." "Denna," I reminded her. She looked down at me for a moment, something unreadable in her expression. "Good night, Princess." She walked away before I could argue. The next day brought rain. Not heavy, but steady and cold. It soaked through my cloak and made the roads slick with mud. The horses moved slower, more carefully. We were halfway through Whisperwood Forest when I heard it. A whistle, sharp and quick, from somewhere in the trees. Althea's hand went to her sword immediately. "Stay close," she ordered, her voice low and urgent. The guards formed up around me, weapons drawn. My heart pounded in my chest. Then they came. 6 men, maybe 7, dressed in mismatched armor and carrying blades that had seen too much use. Bandits. "Just give us the princess," one of them called out, grinning like this was a game. "We'll ransom her back nice and easy. No one has to die." "Turn around and leave," Althea said, her voice cold as winterstone. "Last chance." The man laughed. His friends spread out, circling us. Everything happened fast after that. The bandits attacked. Steel clashed. Horses reared in panic. One of our guards fell hard, clutching his shoulder as pain took him. I tried to stay on my horse, but someone grabbed my arm and yanked. I hit the ground, mud soaking into my clothes. A bandit stood over me, blade raised. Then Althea was there. She moved with sharp, controlled precision. Her sword caught his blade and twisted it aside. She drove her elbow into him, and he fell instantly. Another one came at her from the side. She spun, blocked, and hit his shoulder with her blade's flat edge. He stumbled back, losing his balance. "Get up," she said to me, not even breathing hard. "Now?" I scrambled to my feet. She kept herself between me and the remaining bandits, her sword steady in her hand. The others realized they were losing. They ran, disappearing back into the trees. Althea didn't lower her weapon until the forest was silent again. Then she turned to me. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine. I just fell." She reached out and touched my face, checking for injuries. Her hand was rough and warm, even in the cold rain. "You're bleeding," she said quietly. I touched my cheek and felt the sting. Just a scratch from hitting the ground. It's nothing, I said. It's not nothing. Her voice was harder now, angry. You could have been killed, but I wasn't, because of you. She pulled her hand back like my skin had burned her. We need to keep moving. This place isn't safe. We reached Mooncrest Village just before sunset. It was small and simple, built along the curve of a gentle river. Wooden houses with thatched roofs, smoke rising from chimneys, chickens scratching in the dirt. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone. The village elder, a kind woman named Marta, welcomed us into her home. It was warm inside, fire crackling in the hearth, the smell of baking bread filling the air. You'll stay here tonight, Your Highness, Marta said, gesturing to a small but clean room. And your guards can use the barn. It's dry and there's plenty of space. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Althea started to follow the guards outside, but I caught her arm. Stay, I said quietly. Please. She hesitated, clearly torn between duty and something else. I'll feel safer if you're close, I added, which was true but also an excuse. She nodded once. I'll sleep by the door. Marta brought us bowls of Westland harvest plate for dinner. Roasted carrots and turnips, spiced lentils, fried flatbread, and a simple berry sauce on the side. It was humble food but made with care. We ate at a small wooden table, just the two of us. The guards were outside, the village was quiet, and for the first time since leaving the castle, I felt like I could breathe. This is nice, I said softly. Althea glanced at me. The food, the quiet, the simplicity. No one here cares that I'm a princess. They know who you are, but they don't treat me differently. They just see a person. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Is that what you were doing in the market? Trying to be just a person? Yes. And did it work? I smiled, for a little while, until I met a very serious knight who looked at me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. That got a reaction. The corner of her mouth twitched, almost a smile. I wasn't trying to solve anything, she said, weren't you? She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her eyes. Something that made my breath catch. You should rest, she said finally, standing up. Tomorrow we finish the journey. She moved to the door and sat with her back against the wall, sword across her lap. I lay down on the small bed, still wearing most of my clothes, and watched her in the firelight. She never looked at me again that night, but I knew she was aware of every breath I took. We stayed in Mooncrest for 2 extra days. The trade agreements took longer than expected, and honestly, I wasn't in a hurry to leave. The village felt like freedom in a way the castle never did. On the second morning, I found Althea in the field behind Marta's house, practicing sword forms. Her movements were precise and controlled, each strike deliberate. I watched for a while before speaking. Will you teach me? She stopped mid-swing and turned. Teach you? What? How to fight. How to protect myself. You have guards for that. Guards aren't always enough. You saw what happened in the forest. She lowered her sword, clearly considering it. It's not easy. I didn't ask if it was easy. I asked if you'd teach me. Something changed in her expression. Respect, maybe. Or curiosity. All right, she said finally. But you follow my instructions exactly. No arguments. No arguments, I agreed. She handed me a wooden practice sword from her pack. It was heavier than I expected. First lesson, she said, moving behind me. Your stance. She adjusted my feet with her boot, then placed her hands on my hips to shift my weight. The touch was professional, but my skin burned where she held me. Keep your center low, she instructed. Balance is everything. I tried to focus on her words instead of how close she was standing. Now raise the sword. Not too high. Good, your grip is wrong. She stepped even closer and wrapped her hands around mine, adjusting my fingers on the wooden hilt. Like this, she said quietly, her breath warm against my ear. Firm, but not tight. You need to be able to move. My heart was racing, and it had nothing to do with the lesson. We practiced basic strikes for over an hour. She was patient, but demanding, correcting every mistake, pushing me to do better. By the end, my arms ached and sweat dripped down my back. "You're stronger than you look," she said, and it sounded like a compliment. "You're a good teacher." She took the practice sword from me and stepped back, putting distance between us again. "We should head back. Marta is probably wondering where we went." But neither of us moved right away. We just stood there in the field, breathing hard, looking at each other like we were both trying to figure out what was happening between us. On our last evening in Mooncrest, I convinced Althea to walk with me along the river. The guards stayed behind at Marta's house. It was just the two of us, the setting sun painting the water gold and orange. "I don't want to go back," I admitted, picking up a smooth stone and tossing it into the current. "To the castle, to that life, the rules, the expectations, the constant performance of being Princess Denna Valestra." Althea walked beside me, hands clasped behind her back. "What would you do instead?" "This, live in a place like Mooncrest, grow vegetables, bake bread, talk to people without worrying about protocol. Be normal." "You're not normal, though. You were born into House Valestra. That's not something you can just walk away from." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Why not?" She looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Because your people need you. Because you have responsibilities." "What about what I need?" "What you need doesn't change what you are." Her words stung, even though I knew she didn't mean them cruelly. She was just being honest. "Is that how you see me?" I asked quietly. "As a duty? A responsibility?" Something flickered across her face. "Pain, maybe. Or regret." "I see you as the princess I'm sworn to protect." That's not what I asked. We stood there on the riverbank, close enough that I could see the exact moment she decided not to answer. "We should head back," she said instead. "It's getting dark." "Althea," she finally met my eyes. Don't what?" "Don't ask me questions I can't answer." My chest tightened. "Can't or won't." She looked away, jaw clenched. "Both." I wanted to push, to demand she tell me what she was thinking, what she was feeling, but I could see how much it was costing her to even have this conversation, so I let it go, for now. We walked back in silence, the space between us feeling wider than the river itself. That night, Marta served us Queen's morning porridge, even though it was evening. Oats with warm milk, small nuts, dried berries, and a tiny drop of cinnamon. Comfort food, she called it. Althea sat across from me at the table, eating slowly, not looking up. I wished I knew what she was thinking. I wished she would just say it, but she didn't. And I was starting to realize that Sir Althea of Ironford was very good at keeping her feelings locked away where no one could reach them. We left Mooncrest the next morning. The journey back to Westland took 3 days instead of 2 because we took a longer, safer route. Althea wasn't taking any chances after the bandit attack. On the second night, we camped in a clearing surrounded by tall pine trees. The guards set up their tents while Althea and I sat by the fire. She'd been quiet all day, more quiet than usual. "Did I do something wrong?" I asked finally, unable to take the silence anymore. She looked up from sharpening her sword. "No." "Then why won't you talk to me?" "I am talking to you." "Not really, you're answering questions." "That's different." She set down the whetstone and met my eyes. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth. Whatever you're thinking right now." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I'm thinking that this assignment is more complicated than I expected." "Complicated how?" "You know how." My breath caught. She was finally admitting it. "Not directly, but close enough." "And that scares you," I said softly. "It should scare you too." "It doesn't." She shook her head slowly. "You don't understand what you're risking." "I understand perfectly. I just don't care." Denna, my name on her lips, sent warmth through my entire body. She so rarely used it. "You're the heir to Westland's throne. I'm a knight. There are lines we cannot cross. Lines other people drew, not us." Those lines exist for good reasons. Do they? Or do they just exist to keep people like me locked in cages, made of duty and expectation? She stood abruptly and walked to the edge of the clearing, her back to me. I followed her. Althea, please look at me. She turned slowly in the moonlight. Her face looked carved from stone, but her eyes, those dark brown eyes, showed everything she was trying to hide. I can't give you what you want, she said, her voice rough. I won't risk your future for something that can never be. You don't know that it can never be. Yes, I do. I've lived long enough to know how the world works. People like you marry for alliances and produce heirs. People like me serve and protect and stay in our place. I don't want you to stay in your place. I want you to be honest with me. I am being honest. No, you're being afraid. That hit something deep. She flinched like I'd struck her. I lost people before, she said quietly. In the war, people I cared about, people I failed to protect. I won't do that again. I won't care about someone I can't keep safe. I'm not asking you to keep me safe. I'm asking you to see me, really see me, not as a princess or a duty, just as Denna. She closed her eyes like the words physically hurt. When she opened them again, they were full of something raw and aching. I do see you, she whispered. That's the problem. We stood there, barely an arm's length apart, the world silent around us. I reached up slowly and touched her face, tracing the scar along her jaw. She didn't pull away. What are we doing? She asked, her voice breaking slightly. I don't know. But I don't want to stop. She caught my hand gently and lowered it. We have to. Why? Because if we don't stop now, I won't be able to later. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she must be able to hear it. Then don't stop. For one breathless moment, I thought she might kiss me. I could see the want in her eyes, the way her gaze dropped to my lips. But then she stepped back, breaking the moment. Go back to the fire, Denna, please. It wasn't a command, it was a plea. So I went, even though every part of me wanted to stay. We reached Westland Castle 3 days later. The moment we rode through the gates, everything changed. Althea became Sir Althea again, formal and distant. I became Princess Denna, smile in place, back straight. The masks went back on. My aunt greeted us in the throne room, pleased that the trade agreements were successful. She thanked Althea personally for keeping me safe. Althea bowed deeply and said all the right things. She didn't look at me once. That night, I stood at my window and stared out at the city below. Somewhere out there, people were living simple lives, loving who they wanted, being free. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and tried not to cry. A soft knock on my door made me turn. Come in, I called, expecting my handmaiden. But it was Althea. She stood in the doorway, still in her armor, looking uncertain. I shouldn't be here, but you are. She stepped inside and closed the door quietly behind her. I wanted to make sure you were all right. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. That surprised a laugh out of me. So are you. She almost smiled. Almost. I meant what I said by the river, she said quietly. About the lines we can't cross. I know. But I also can't stop thinking about you. The words hung in the air between us. I can't stop thinking about you either, I admitted. She crossed the room slowly and stopped in front of me. This close, I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the conflict. This is impossible, she said. I know. We can't. I know. She reached up and touched my face, her rough fingers gentle against my skin. Then why does it feel like the only thing that makes sense? I didn't have an answer. I just leaned into her touch and closed my eyes. We stood like that for a long moment, not kissing, not crossing that final line, just existing in the same space, breathing the same air. I should go, she finally whispered. I know. But neither of us moved. 2 weeks passed in careful distance. Althea attended her duties. I attended mine. We saw each other in hallways and during meals in the Great Hall, but always with others present. Always proper. It was driving me insane. Then one morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I found her in the training yard, working through sword forms with the other guards. "Sir Althea," I called out, "I'd like to continue my lessons." She stopped mid-swing and turned. The other guards looked between us, curious. "Of course, Your Highness," she said formally. "When would you like to begin?" Now, something flashed in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or amusement, as you wish. She dismissed the other guards and handed me a practice sword. We moved through the basic forms I'd learned in Mooncrest, her corrections gentle but firm. After an hour, we were both breathing hard. She called for a break and we sat on a stone bench near the wall. "You've improved," she said, taking a drink from her water skin. "I've been practicing in my chambers, with a broom handle." That got a real smile. Small, but genuine. A broom handle. It was all I had. The guards won't let me keep a real sword in my room. Probably wise. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then I said quietly, "I miss talking to you." "Really talking." Her smile faded. "Denna, I know lines we can't cross. You've said it enough times that I've memorized it. Then why do you keep pushing?" "Because I think those lines are hurting both of us." She looked down at her hands. "What do you want from me?" "Time. Just time. Away from the castle, away from the eyes and expectations. A few hours where we can be honest with each other. That's dangerous." "I don't care." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "There's a place in the forest, about an hour's ride north. Very few people know about it." My heart jumped. "Tomorrow, before dawn, wear simple clothes. Tell no one." "I won't." She stood and offered me her hand to help me up. When our fingers touched, she held on just a moment longer than necessary. "This is a mistake," she said softly. "Probably, but I'm going to make it anyway." The next morning, I slipped out of the castle before the sun rose. I wore a plain brown dress and cloak, my hair in a simple braid. No jewels, no crown, nothing that marked me as royalty. Althea was waiting at the stable, with 2 horses already saddled. "Ready?" she asked. "Yes." We rode in silence through the sleeping city and out into the countryside. The sky was just starting to lighten, painting everything in shades of gray and purple. True to her word, about an hour later we reached a clearing deep in the forest. A small stream ran through it, and wildflowers grew in scattered patches. It was beautiful and completely private. We dismounted, and Althea pulled a wrapped bundle from her saddlebag. I brought food. She spread a blanket on the ground and unpacked iron-furred ember bread, cheese, dried fruit, and a flask of water. Simple food, but made special by the setting. We sat across from each other and ate slowly, neither of us rushing. "How did you find this place?" I asked. "I was scouting patrol routes when I first arrived in Westland, came across it by accident. It felt peaceful, so I remembered it. It's perfect." We finished eating and she packed everything away. Then she just sat there, looking at me. "What?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. "You look different like this. More like the girl I met in the market." "This is who I really am. The other version is just performance." "I know." She moved to sit beside me instead of across from me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. "Tell me something true," I said. "Something you've never told anyone." She considered it for a moment. "I'm tired of being a soldier. I've fought in too many battles, seen too many people die. Sometimes I dream about putting down my sword and never picking it up again." "What would you do instead?" "I don't know. Build things, maybe. Work with my hands in a way that creates instead of destroys." "That sounds nice." "Your turn. Tell me something true." I took a breath. I've never been in love before. Never even been attracted to anyone, until I met you in that market. She turned to look at me, her expression serious. "Denna, I know what you're going to say, but it's still true." She reached out slowly and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. Her fingers lingered against my cheek. "This can't go anywhere," she said softly. "I know. You'll marry some prince or duke. Form an alliance. That's your future. Maybe. But right now, in this moment, I'm here with you. That's enough." She leaned closer, her forehead almost touching mine. "Is it?" "It has to be." We sat like that, breathing the same air, existing in a space that felt separate from the rest of the world. She didn't kiss me. We both knew that once we crossed that line, there would be no going back. But the wanting was there, heavy and real between us. We met in the forest clearing 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each time felt stolen and precious. We talked about everything. Her childhood in Ironford, my mother who died when I was young, our fears and hopes and the lives we wished we could live. We trained with swords. She taught me defensive moves, how to read an opponent, when to strike, and when to wait. And we sat close, sometimes holding hands, sometimes just existing in comfortable silence. It wasn't enough, but it was more than I'd ever had before. Then, everything changed. I was in a council meeting with my aunt and her advisors when a messenger arrived. He carried a sealed letter with a royal crest I didn't recognize. My aunt read it in silence, her expression carefully neutral. Then she looked at me. "Denna, please stay after the meeting. The rest of you are dismissed." My stomach dropped. Something was wrong. When everyone else had filed out, my aunt set the letter on the table between us. "A proposal of marriage has arrived. From Prince Kieran of Northmere." The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Northmere is a powerful kingdom. An alliance with them would secure our borders and strengthen our trade routes. The council believes this is an excellent opportunity. I don't want to marry Prince Kieran. I don't even know him. That's irrelevant. This is about Westland's future, not your personal preferences. I stood up, anger flooding through me. So I'm just a piece to be traded, a tool for alliances. My aunt's expression softened slightly. "You're the heir to the throne, Denna. This is your duty. My duty is to be miserable for the rest of my life. Your duty is to your people. And right now, they need this alliance. Northmere's support could prevent war. You understand what that means." I did understand. I understood perfectly, and I hated it. "How long do I have?" I asked, my voice hollow. "The prince will arrive in 1 week for a formal courtship. If all goes well, the wedding will be in 3 months. 3 months, 12 weeks, 90 days. The numbers felt impossibly small. "May I be excused, Your Majesty?" My aunt nodded. "I'm sorry, Denna. I truly am. But this is the way things must be." I walked out of the council room on shaking legs. I made it to my chambers before the tears started. I needed to see Althea. I needed to tell her before anyone else did. I found her in the barracks cleaning her armor. She looked up when I entered and immediately stood. "Denna, you shouldn't be here. If anyone sees." "I don't care." My voice broke. "I need to talk to you." She saw my face and her expression shifted to concern. "What happened?" "I'm getting married." The words hung in the air between us. All the color drained from her face. "A proposal came today from Northmere." My aunt accepted it. She just stared at me, processing. Then she sat down heavily on the bench, like her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. "When?" she asked. "He arrives next week. The wedding is in 3 months. 3 months. Althea, I don't want this. I don't want to marry someone I don't know. Someone I don't love." She looked up at me, and I saw devastation in her eyes. "It doesn't matter what you want. You're the princess. This is your duty. Don't say that. Don't use the same words she did. Because they're true." She stood and crossed to me. "This was always going to happen, Denna. We both knew it. I thought we'd have more time." Time for what? To pretend this could work. To make it hurt worse when it ended. Tears were streaming down my face now. "Is that all this was to you? Pretending?" "No." Her voice cracked. "No. It was the most real thing I've ever felt. And that's why it has to end now, before we destroy each other. I don't want it to end. She reached up and cupped my face in her hands. Neither do I, but we don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not for us. You're the heir to Westland. I'm a knight sworn to protect you. Those are facts we can't change. I grabbed her wrists, holding her hands against my face. Then let's run away. Leave Westland. Go somewhere no one knows us. You know I can't do that. Why not? Because you're needed here. Your people need you. And I won't be the reason you abandon them. So you're just going to let me go? Marry someone else? Pretend this never happened? She pulled me close, pressing my forehead against hers. I'm going to do my duty, same as you. Even if it kills me. We stood there, holding each other, both of us crying now. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. We'd barely even begun. The next week was torture. I met Prince Kieran of Northmere 2 days after his arrival. He was handsome in a conventional way, with golden hair and blue eyes, and the kind of confident smile that came from never being told no. He was also kind, genuinely kind, which somehow made everything worse. Princess Denna, he said, bowing formally, it's an honor to meet you. The honor is mine, Your Highness. We walked through the castle gardens while my aunt and his advisors followed at a respectful distance. Althea was there too, standing guard, her face carefully blank. Kieran talked easily about Northmere, about his family, about his hopes for the alliance. He asked me questions about Westland, about my interests, actually seeming to care about the answers. Under different circumstances, I might have liked him, but all I could think about was Althea, standing 10 paces behind us, watching me promise my life to someone else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled on my cloak and slipped out of my chambers, moving through the dark castle corridors by memory. I found Althea on the battlements, staring out at the city below. You shouldn't be here, she said, without turning around. I know. If someone sees us together, let them. She finally looked at me. Denna, stop, please. I can't just accept this and move on like you mean nothing to me. I have to mean nothing to you. That's the only way this works. I moved closer until I was standing right beside her. Is that what you want? For me to forget you? What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me. She closed her eyes, pain written across her face. He seems like a good man, the prince. He is. Then maybe it won't be so bad. Don't. I'm trying to make this easier for you. You're making it worse. I grabbed her hand, not caring who might see. I don't want easy. I don't want him. I want you. She pulled her hand away gently. You can't have me. Not in any way that matters. We could run away tonight. Right now. And doom your kingdom. Leave your people without an heir. Start a war between Westland and Northmere. You know better than that. She was right. I did know better. But that didn't stop me from hating it. I wish I'd never met you, I whispered. It would hurt less. She flinched like I'd struck her. I wish that too sometimes. But I don't mean it. Neither do I. We stood there in silence, the night cold around us. There has to be another way, I said finally. There isn't. What if I marry him? Fulfill the alliance. And then later, when things are stable, we find a way to be together. She turned to look at me. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we don't run away now. Maybe we wait. Play the game. And when the time is right, we leave together. I could see her mind working, considering it. That's years away, Denna, if it even works at all. But it's something. A plan, a hope, better than just accepting defeat. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, if we do this, if we make this plan, you have to follow through with the marriage. You have to make it real, at least publicly. I know. And I have to watch you build a life with him. Pretend to be happy. I know. That might destroy us both. Or it might save us. She looked at me with something like wonder in her eyes. You're really willing to do this? Marry him. Wait possibly years. Risk everything. just for the chance that maybe someday we could be together. Yes. Why? Because you're worth it. Because what we have is worth it. Because I'd rather have hope and pain than nothing at all. She reached out and traced my jawline with her fingers. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish. Probably both. That got a real smile. Sad, but real. Then we make a plan, she said. Carefully, quietly, and we wait for the right moment. Together. I kissed her then. Just once, soft and gentle and full of promises we might not be able to keep. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. This is going to hurt, she whispered. I know. We might fail. I know, but we try anyway. The week before my wedding, I barely saw Althea. She'd requested a shift change, putting distance between us. Smart, but it felt like losing a limb. Prince Kieran and I spent time together every day. Walks in the garden, meals in the Great Hall, conversations about the future. He was patient and respectful, never pushing for more than I was willing to give. One evening, we sat in the castle library. He was reading reports from Northmere, while I pretended to look at a book about trade routes. Can I ask you something? He said suddenly. I looked up, of course. Are you happy? About the marriage, I mean. The question caught me off guard. That's a complicated question. He set down his papers and turned to face me fully. I know this wasn't your choice. It wasn't mine either, really. Our families decided this would benefit both kingdoms. That's how these things work. It doesn't have to be miserable, though. I'd like us to be friends at least. Maybe more, eventually, if you're willing. But I won't force anything. His honesty made my chest ache. He deserved better than someone who could never love him the way he might want. You're a good man, Kieran, I said softly. But my heart isn't available. Not in the way you might hope. He was quiet for a moment, studying my face. Is there someone else? I hesitated, then decided on partial truth. There was. It didn't work out. I'm sorry. So am I. He reached over and took my hand. Not romantically, just kindly. Then we'll be friends who happen to be married. We'll do our duty to our kingdoms. And maybe someday it won't hurt as much. I squeezed his hand gratefully. Thank you for understanding. We're both trapped by duty, Denna. Least we can do is be kind to each other about it. That night, Althea finally came to my chambers. It was late, well past midnight. She knocked softly and I opened the door immediately. We shouldn't, she started. I don't care. Come in. She stepped inside and I closed the door behind her. We just stood there, looking at each other. 7 days, I said. I know. After the wedding, my aunt is assigning you as my permanent guard. You'll travel with me to Northmere. Something shifted in her expression. She told you that? This morning, she said. You're the only person she trusts completely to keep me safe. That's good. It means we can stay together, at least physically. But it also means you'll have to watch me play the role of Kieran's wife. I know. I moved closer. I need you to know something. No matter what happens, no matter what I have to do publicly, none of it is real. The only real thing is this. She cupped my face in her hands. I know. Promise me you won't forget that. I promise. She kissed me then, deeper than before. Desperate and tender and full of everything we couldn't say out loud. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. After the wedding, I whispered, after things settle, we start gathering what we need. Money, maps, safe routes. We plan everything carefully. How long? A year maybe. Long enough that the alliance is solid. Long enough that my leaving won't start a war. And then we disappear. Together, somewhere no one will find us. She pressed her forehead against mine. 1 year. I can survive 1 year if I know you're waiting at the end of it. I'll be waiting, I promise. We spent the rest of the night just holding each other, memorizing the feel of being close, storing up warmth against the cold year ahead. When dawn started to break, she kissed me one last time and left. 7 days until everything changed. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, sunny and warm, flowers blooming in the castle gardens, birds singing like the world itself was celebrating. It felt like a cruel joke. My handmaidens dressed me in a gown of white silk and gold thread. They wove flowers into my hair and painted my lips the color of roses. In the mirror, I looked like someone else, a princess playing a role. My aunt came to my chambers before the ceremony. She dismissed the handmaidens and we were alone. "You look beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you." She crossed the room and took my hands. "I know this isn't what you wanted, but you're doing the right thing. For Westland, for our people. I know. Kieran is a good man. He'll treat you well. I know that too." She studied my face for a long moment. "There's something I need to say. Something I probably shouldn't say, but I'm going to anyway." My heart jumped. "I'm not blind, Denna. I see how you look at Seer Althea, and how she looks at you." All the air left my lungs. "Aunt Marin." She held up a hand. "Let me finish. I don't approve." "I can't approve. You're the heir to the throne. But I also remember what it's like to care for someone you can't have. I was young once too. Then why are you making me do this?" "Because I have to. Because sometimes duty demands we sacrifice our happiness for something bigger. But I want you to know that I understand. And I'm sorry." Tears burned in my eyes. "Does that change anything?" "No. You'll still marry Kieran today. You'll still go to Northmere. You'll still fulfill your duty. But maybe it helps to know that someone sees your pain." She pulled me into a hug, something she rarely did. I held on to her, letting myself be weak for just a moment. "I'll assign Althea as your permanent guard," she said quietly. "At least you'll have her near you, even if it can't be what you want." "Thank you." She pulled back and wiped my tears carefully. "Now, fix your face. You have a kingdom watching." The ceremony was held in the great hall, packed with nobles and dignitaries from both kingdoms. Flowers decorated every surface. Musicians played softly in the corner. I walked down the aisle alone, head high, face serene. Princess Denna Valestra, doing her duty. Kieran stood at the altar, looking handsome in his formal attire. He smiled at me kindly when I reached him. The priest began the ceremony. Words about unity and alliance, and the joining of two great houses. I barely heard any of it. My eyes found Althea in the crowd. She stood with the other guards, her face carefully neutral. But when our eyes met, I saw everything she was hiding. Pain and love and determination all mixed together. I held her gaze while the priest talked. A silent promise passing between us. 1 year. "Princess Denna Valestra," the priest said, pulling my attention back. "Do you take Prince Kieran of Northmere as your husband, to honor and respect, in times of peace and times of trial?" I thought about lying, about saying no and running, about choosing myself for once, but I couldn't. Not with all these people watching. Not with 2 kingdoms depending on this alliance. "I do," I said clearly. Kieran repeated his vows. Then the priest pronounced us married and Kieran kissed me gently on the lips. The crowd cheered. Musicians played louder. People celebrated, and I felt like I was drowning. The feast afterward lasted hours. Food I didn't taste, wine I didn't drink, conversations I didn't remember. Kieran stayed at my side, playing the role of devoted husband, occasionally squeezing my hand in support. Late in the evening, when most of the guests were drunk and the celebration was winding down, I saw Althea slip out of the hall. I waited 10 minutes, then excused myself and followed. I found her on the battlements again, staring out at the dark city. "You shouldn't be here," she said when I approached. "Everyone's too drunk to notice I'm gone." "You're wearing a wedding dress. Someone will notice." "I don't care." She finally turned to look at me. "How are you holding up?" "I'm not, but I'm pretending really well." She almost smiled. "You always do." I moved to stand beside her, close but not touching. 1 year. 1 year. We can do this. We have to. Below us, the city was quiet, peaceful, people sleeping in their homes, unaware of the sacrifice being made for their safety. I should go back, I said eventually, before someone comes looking. Yes, but neither of us moved. Althea, yes. I love you. She closed her eyes, breathing through the words. I love you too. It was the first time either of us had said it out loud. Remember that. When this year gets hard, remember that I love you. I will. I walked back to the celebration, back to my new husband, back to the life I'd chosen for duty instead of love. But I carried those 3 words with me like armor. 3 days after the wedding, the Queen made her announcement. We were gathered in the throne room, my new husband beside me, advisors and guards arranged formally around the space. Sir Althea of Ironford, my aunt said, her voice carrying authority. I am assigning you as Princess Denna's permanent protector. You will accompany her to Northmere and ensure her safety at all times. Althea bowed deeply. It would be my honor, Your Majesty. Kieran leaned over and whispered to me, That's the knight who protected you during your trade mission. Yes, good choice. She seems very capable. She is, I said neutrally. My aunt continued, You'll leave for Northmere in 2 days. Prince Kieran, your father expects you to return with your bride promptly. The people of Northmere are eager to meet their new princess. Of course, Your Majesty, Kieran said. After the announcement, we spent the rest of the day preparing. Servants packed my belongings, selected which guards would travel with us, organized supplies for the journey. Althea supervised everything with quiet efficiency. She barely looked at me, maintaining perfect professional distance. That night, Kieran and I dined alone in the chambers we now shared. It was awkward, both of us trying to figure out how to exist in this new reality. The journey to Northmere takes about a week, he said, cutting into his rivercrest pan-seared trout. Fresh fish with salt, pan-seared in butter, with lemon herbs and boiled greens on the side. We'll stop at several villages along the way. Let people see you. That sounds fine. He set down his fork. Denna, we need to talk about sleeping arrangements. My stomach tightened. What about them? I meant what I said about not forcing anything. I'll sleep in the other room, give you space. We can take our time figuring out how this works. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. Eventually, people will expect heirs. But that's a conversation for later. Much later. I appreciate your patience. We're friends, remember? Friends don't pressure each other. After dinner, he kissed my cheek gently and retired to the adjoining chamber. I sat alone in the main room, staring at the fire. A soft knock made me turn. Althea stood in the doorway. I'm here for evening guard duty, she said formally. Come in. She stepped inside, but stayed near the door. Where is the prince? In the other room. He's giving me space. That's good of him. We stood there in awkward silence. Althea, you don't have to be so formal when we're alone. Yes, I do. It's the only way I can do this without breaking. Her honesty cut through me. I'm sorry. Don't be. We chose this path. Both of us. Doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. She moved to her post by the door, sword at her side, face carefully blank. The perfect guard. I wanted to cross the room and hold her. Tell her it would be okay. But I couldn't. So I went to bed alone, knowing she was standing watch just outside my door, close enough to hear if I needed her, but impossibly far away in every way that mattered. We left for Northmere 2 days later. The journey took us through rolling hills and small farming villages. People came out to see their new princess, offering flowers and well wishes. I smiled and waved like I was supposed to. Kieran rode beside me, playing the devoted husband. Althea rode behind us with the other guards, silent and watchful. On the 3rd night, we stopped at an inn in a small town. The innkeeper was honored to host royalty and gave us his best rooms. Kieran and I shared a suite again, him in one chamber, me in another. Althea took a room down the hall with the guards. After everyone settled for the night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled on a cloak and slipped out of my room, moving quietly through the dark hallway. I found Althea's door and knocked softly. She opened it immediately, already dressed. "Denna, what are you doing?" "I needed to see you." She glanced down the hall, checking for witnesses, then pulled me inside quickly. "This is dangerous," she said. "I know. If someone sees, they won't." Her room was small and simple. A bed, a chair, a window overlooking the street. Nothing like the luxury I was used to. "How are you managing?" she asked quietly. "I'm surviving, barely." "The prince is being kind?" "Too kind. It makes me feel guilty." She sat on the edge of the bed and I joined her. Not touching, just close. "We've been married 3 days, and I already hate it," I admitted. "How am I supposed to do this for a year?" "One day at a time. Focus on the plan, on the end goal. What if we can't do it? What if a year turns into 2, then 5, then forever?" She turned to look at me. "Then we adjust the plan. But we don't give up. Never give up. Promise me." "I promise." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she said, "There's something I need to tell you. About Northmere." "What?" "I've been there before. Years ago, during the border conflicts. I know the city layout, the surrounding areas. That will help when we plan our escape. You're already thinking about routes. I've been thinking about nothing else." That made me smile, despite everything. "Tell me." She stood and pulled out a piece of paper from her pack. "A rough map. The castle sits here, in the city center. But there are underground passages, old smuggling routes from centuries ago. Most people don't know about them." "How do you know?" "I had to evacuate injured soldiers during the conflict. Local contacts showed me the passages." She spread the map on the small table, and I moved closer to look. Our shoulders touched as we bent over it. "Here," she said, pointing. "This passage leads outside the city walls. If we can access it from the castle, we can leave without anyone seeing." "Where does it come out?" "A farmhouse about 3 miles north, abandoned now. We could hide supplies there ahead of time." My heart was beating faster. This could actually work. It's risky, but yes, it could work. We spent the next hour going over details, potential obstacles, what supplies we'd need, how to move gold without raising suspicion. A noise in the hallway made us both freeze. Footsteps passing by, then fading. "You should go," Althea whispered, "before someone notices you're gone." "I don't want to, I know, but we can't risk it." She walked me to the door and checked the hallway. Empty. 1 year, I whispered. 1 year. I slipped back to my room without being seen. Kieran was still asleep in his chamber. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about underground passages and abandoned farmhouses and freedom. Maybe we really could do this. We arrived in Northmere 6 days later. The city was beautiful in its own way. Tall white stone buildings, wide streets, gardens everywhere. The castle sat on a hill overlooking everything, impressive and imposing. People lined the streets to see their new princess. I waved and smiled until my face hurt. Kieran's father, King Aldrich, greeted us in the throne room. He was older, gray-haired, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Welcome to Northmere, Princess Denna," he said formally. "We're pleased to have you join our family." "The honor is mine, Your Majesty." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Kieran has spoken highly of you. I trust you'll serve Northmere well." "I'll do my best." The first weeks were a blur of introductions and ceremonies, meeting nobles, learning customs, attending state dinners. Everyone watched me, judging whether I was worthy of their prince. Kieran stayed close, helping me navigate the politics. He introduced me to important families, warned me about who to trust and who to avoid. Althea was always nearby, standing guard, her presence the only thing keeping me grounded. 1 month after arriving, Kieran's father announced we'd take a honeymoon trip. A week at a royal estate in the countryside. "It's tradition," Kieran explained as we prepared to leave. "Gives the newlyweds time alone together. My stomach twisted, of course. The estate was smaller than the castle, but still luxurious. Beautiful grounds, a lake, forests surrounding everything. The staff prepared a romantic dinner, our first night there. Candles, wine, sweet meadow cakes for dessert made with crushed oats, honey and dried fruits. Kieran poured us both wine and raised his glass. To our future. To our future, I echoed. He drank heavily that night, more than I'd seen before. By the time we retired, he was clearly drunk. I'm sorry, he said, words slurring slightly. I know you don't love me. I thought maybe wine would make it easier. Kieran, it's okay, I understand. You're doing your duty, so am I. He stumbled toward his room. I just need to sleep. We'll talk in the morning. He passed out almost immediately, still fully clothed on top of his bed. I stood there for a moment, feeling sorry for him. Then I realized this might be my only chance. I slipped out of the suite and found Althea standing guard in the hallway. He's asleep, I whispered. Drunk, he won't wake up for hours. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Denna, please, we might not get another chance like this. She glanced at the other guard stationed at the far end of the hall. Too far to hear us? My room, she whispered. 5 minutes. I waited, counting slowly, then walked casually down the hall like I was just stretching my legs. I slipped into her room, unseen. She was waiting, already closing the curtains, locking the door. We shouldn't, she said, but her voice held no conviction. I know. If someone finds out, they won't. We stood there, staring at each other across the small room. A month of careful distance, of pretending, of denying what we both wanted. I crossed to her and she met me halfway. The kiss was different this time, not gentle or tentative. Desperate and hungry and full of a month's worth of longing. Her hands tangled in my hair, mine pulled at her shirt. We stumbled toward the bed, neither of us willing to break apart. I've missed you, she breathed against my lips. Every single day. I've missed you too. We made love slowly, savoring every touch, every kiss, every moment, like we were trying to memorize each other, store up warmth against the cold months ahead. Afterward, we lay tangled together, her arms wrapped around me, my head on her chest listening to her heartbeat. This is the only real thing, I whispered. Everything else is just performance. I know. I love you. I love you too. We stayed like that until nearly dawn. Then reality crashed back in. You need to go, she said reluctantly, before the servants start moving around. I know. Neither of us moved. Althea, yes. This year is going to break us if we're not careful. I know. But we're strong enough. We have to be. I kissed her one more time, trying to pour everything I felt into it. Then I forced myself to leave. I slipped back into my suite, just as the sky was lightening. Kieran was still passed out, snoring softly. I lay in my own bed, Althea's scent still on my skin, and let myself cry quietly. 1 year suddenly felt like forever. The months crawled by like wounded animals. I settled into life in Northmere, learning their customs, attending their councils, playing the role of dutiful princess. Kieran and I developed a comfortable friendship built on mutual understanding and quiet kindness. But every night, I went to bed alone, aching for something I couldn't have. Althea and I were careful, so careful. We never spoke privately where others might see. Never touched except in formal circumstances. We communicated through glances and small gestures that meant everything and nothing. But slowly, quietly, we gathered what we needed. I started taking walks through the castle, memorizing layouts, finding the entrance to those underground passages Althea had mentioned. It was hidden behind a false wall in the old wine cellar, exactly where she'd said it would be. Althea made trips to the abandoned farmhouse, disguising them as patrol routes. She stashed supplies there bit by bit: dried food, blankets, weapons, a change of clothes for both of us. I diverted gold from my personal treasury in small amounts. Not enough that anyone would notice, but enough that over months it added up to something significant. We were building our escape piece by careful piece. 6 months after arriving in Northmere, King Aldrich summoned me to his study. "Sit, please," he said, gesturing to a chair. My heart raced, but I kept my face calm. "Of course, Your Majesty." He poured us both wine from a crystal decanter. "You've adapted well to life here. Better than I expected, honestly. Thank you. Kieran speaks highly of you. Says you're intelligent, diplomatic, good with the people. He's kind to say so." The king studied me over his wineglass. "But he also tells me you keep separate chambers, that the marriage remains unconsummated." My blood went cold. "That's a private matter between husband and wife, Your Majesty." "Normally, yes, but you're not just any wife. You're a princess of 2 kingdoms now. Heirs are expected. Required, actually." "I understand. Do you? Because 6 months is one thing, but a year, 2 years, that becomes a problem. People talk. They question the alliance." I forced myself to stay calm. "Kieran and I are taking our time, building trust. Time is running out, Denna. I need grandchildren to secure the succession. I need proof this alliance means something beyond words on paper. Are you ordering me to produce an heir? I'm telling you that both our kingdoms expect it. And what kingdoms expect, royalty provides." The conversation ended there, but the message was clear. My time was running out faster than I'd planned. That night, I found a way to slip into Althea's room. We sat on her narrow bed, speaking in whispers. "We need to move up the timeline," I said urgently. "What happened?" I told her about the king's conversation, about the pressure for heirs, for proof the marriage was real. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Months, maybe. Not the full year we planned." She stood and paced the small room. "We're not ready. We don't have enough supplies. The route isn't fully scouted." "I know, but if we wait much longer, they'll force the issue. And then leaving becomes impossible." She stopped pacing and looked at me. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we might need to run sooner. 3 months, maybe. 4 at most. That's not enough time. It has to be." She crossed to me and took my hands. "If we do this wrong, if we get caught, they'll execute me for treason, and they'll lock you away somewhere you'll never escape." "I know the risks." "Do you really?" "Because once we run, there's no going back. Ever. You'll lose your title, your family, everything you've ever known. I don't care about any of that. I only care about being free with you." She pulled me to my feet and held me close. "Then we move up the plan, but we do it smart. No mistakes." "No mistakes," I agreed. We spent the next hour refining our strategy. We'd leave during the spring festival, when the castle would be full of visitors and chaos. Althea would say she was doing a security sweep. I'd say I needed air. Too many people making me anxious. We'd meet at the wine cellar entrance. Take the underground passage to the farmhouse. Collect our supplies, and disappear before anyone realized we were gone. Simple, dangerous. Our only chance. The spring festival arrived 3 months later, exactly as planned. The castle filled with nobles and merchants and performers. Music played constantly. Wine flowed freely. Everyone was distracted by celebration. Perfect cover for an escape. I spent the day playing my role, smiling at guests, dancing with Kieran, pretending everything was normal. My heart hammered in my chest the entire time, but I kept my face serene. Althea stood guard, watching everything, waiting for our moment. As evening fell and the celebrations grew louder, I touched Kieran's arm. "I need some air. Too many people." "Of course," he said kindly. "Should I come with you?" "No. Stay. Enjoy yourself. I'll just walk the gardens for a bit." He squeezed my hand and let me go. I slipped through the crowded halls, moving toward the old sections of the castle. My dress was simple tonight, easy to move in. I'd planned that carefully. Althea caught up to me near the wine cellar entrance. "Ready?" Yes. She'd already moved the false wall, revealing the dark passage beyond. We slipped inside and she pulled the wall back into place behind us. Darkness swallowed us whole. Althea lit a small lantern she'd hidden there weeks ago. The flame cast dancing shadows on ancient stone walls. "This way," she whispered. We moved through the passage quickly, but carefully. It twisted and turned, sometimes narrow enough that we had to walk single file, sometimes opening into larger chambers. My breath came fast. This was really happening. We were really doing this. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, we reached a wooden door. Althea pushed it open carefully, and we emerged into the night air. The abandoned farmhouse stood 50 paces away, dark and silent. We ran. Inside, Althea had stashed everything. 2 packs with food, water, warm clothes, gold sewn into hidden pockets. Maps showing safe routes to distant kingdoms. False documents giving us new names. We changed quickly, stripping off our royal clothes and putting on simple traveler's garments. I braided my hair tightly and covered it with a worn scarf. Althea removed any identifying marks from her armor, leaving only a plain sword. "Last chance to change your mind," she said quietly. I looked at her in the dim lamplight, this woman who'd become everything to me, who I was throwing away a kingdom for. "I've never been more sure of anything," I said. She kissed me then, hard and fierce. When we pulled apart, she was smiling. Actually smiling. "Then, let's go be free." We left the farmhouse and walked into the dark forest beyond. 2 horses waited where Althea had hidden them weeks ago. We mounted and rode north, away from Northmere, away from Westland, away from everything we'd ever known. The moon lit our path. The night was quiet except for hoofbeats and wind in the trees. No one followed us. No alarms raised. We'd made it. As dawn broke over distant hills, we stopped to rest the horses. Althea pulled out bread and cheese from her pack, and we ate sitting on a fallen log. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it, about everything I'd left behind. The crown, the castle, my Aunt Kieran, who'd been kinder than he needed to be. "Free," I said finally. "For the first time in my life, I feel free." She reached over and took my hand. "Where should we go?" "Somewhere warm, somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one knows the name Denna Valestra. I know a place, small villages near the southern coast. Far from both kingdoms, we could build a life there." "What kind of life?" "Whatever kind we want, that's the point." I squeezed her hand. "Then that's where we go." We finished eating and mounted again. The sun rose higher, warming our faces, lighting the road ahead. Behind us, our old lives disappeared. Ahead was unknown and uncertain and perfect. We rode for 3 weeks, taking back roads and avoiding cities. Althea knew how to move unseen, how to cover our tracks. We slept in barns and paid farmers in copper for meals. No one looked at us twice, just 2 travelers moving south. My hands blistered from the rains. My body ached from long days riding. I'd never been happier. We finally reached the coastal villages Althea had mentioned. Small fishing communities scattered along white sand beaches. The air smelled like salt and freedom. We found a tiny cottage at the edge of one village. The owner had died months ago, and no one had claimed it. We paid the village elder a small sum, and it was ours. 2 rooms, a fireplace, a garden plot overgrown with weeds. Nothing like the castles I'd grown up in. It was perfect. We spent our first week making it livable. Althea repaired the roof while I cleaned inside. We bought simple furniture from local craftsmen, planted vegetables in the garden. The villagers accepted us as Mara and Thea, travelers who'd decided to settle. No one asked questions. No one cared about our past. One evening, we sat outside watching the sunset over the ocean. Althea was cleaning fish she'd caught that morning. I was kneading dough for Ironford ember bread, the kind she'd taught me to make with coarse flour, warm water, a pinch of salt, baked on hot stones. Do you miss it? She asked suddenly. The castle, the luxury, being a princess? I thought about it honestly. Sometimes I miss my aunt, and Kieran strangely. He was a good friend. Any regrets? Only that we didn't do this sooner. She looked over at me, fish knife paused in her hand. Really? Really. I spent 32 years living a life that wasn't mine, playing a role everyone else wrote for me. Now I get to decide who I am. And who are you? I smiled. I'm still figuring that out. But I know I'm Denna, who loves Althea. Denna, who's learning to fish and garden and bake bread. Denna, who's happy. She set down the knife and crossed to where I sat. Her hands were wet and smelled like fish, but I didn't care. She cupped my face and kissed me softly. I love you, she said. I love you too. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm after that. Althea worked with the village fishermen, her strength and experience making her valuable. I helped the healer, using the medical knowledge I'd learned in Westland's court. We grew vegetables and baked our own bread. We walked along the beach at sunset. We made love in our small cottage with the windows open, ocean breeze cooling our skin. Sometimes traders brought news from the distant kingdoms. We learned that my disappearance had caused a brief scandal. King Aldrich had accused Westland of breaking the alliance. My aunt had claimed I'd been kidnapped. But Kieran, kind Kieran, had eventually told the truth, that I'd left willingly, that the marriage had been political, never love, that he bore me no ill will and hoped I'd found happiness. The scandal faded. Life moved on. Both kingdoms found other ways to maintain their alliance, and we were forgotten. Just another royal scandal lost to time. 1 year after we escaped, Althea and I stood on the beach at dawn. She'd carved 2 simple rings from driftwood. No priest, no ceremony, she said, slipping one on my finger. Just us, choosing each other. I put the other ring on her finger. Just us, forever. We kissed as the sun rose over the water, painting everything gold. I'd given up a kingdom, a throne, a life of luxury and power, and I'd gained everything that mattered. Years passed like water. We grew older together in our little cottage. My hair started showing gray. The lines around Althea's eyes deepened. Her hands grew rough from work, but gentle when they touched me. We were happy. Truly, deeply happy. Some mornings I woke early and watched her sleep, still amazed that this was real, that we'd actually done it, that we were free. Other mornings she woke first and I'd find her making Queen's morning porridge, the recipe I'd taught her. Oats with warm milk, small nuts, dried berries, a tiny drop of cinnamon. We'd eat together watching the sunrise through our window, her hand in mine. This was the life I'd dreamed about in that market in Riversend, the first time I saw her. The life I'd risked everything for, and it was worth it. Every single moment was worth it. Sometimes I thought about my aunt, wondered if she'd known all along what I would choose, if she'd let me go on purpose, her final act of love. I liked to think she had, that somewhere in Westland she was glad I'd found happiness. Althea and I never returned to either kingdom. We never reclaimed our old names. We stayed Mara and Thea, the women who lived in the cottage by the sea, and we were happy, so impossibly, perfectly happy. On quiet evenings, when we sat by our fire, Althea sometimes asked if I had any regrets. My answer was always the same, only that I didn't find you sooner. She'd smile and pull me close, and we'd sit in comfortable silence, listening to the waves crash against the shore. 2 women who'd given up everything to have each other. 2 women who'd found that love was worth more than any crown.
I was shaped by gilded walls, held by echoes, bound by halls. Yet your calm
Thank you for watching Sapphic Story Hour. Please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, bye-bye.